All right, everyone. Hopefully, this session was kind of helpful, kind of talking about transitions and animations. This is kind of like the fun. I always find when I teach web development specifically, this is the most fun. I will say that it's one of those things it's easy to get kind of lost in the sauce. Don't over apply transitions or animations, even though they are kind of fun. But use them sparingly where it makes sense to help your design. Just because you can animate something doesn't necessarily mean you should animate something. The same with transitions. But anywho, all right. So let's talk about your homework. Your homework is I'm assigning you a new kind of, Mr. Hurwitz follow along type lab. It's called Ice Cream website, and essentially it practices everything that we talked about today, which is CSS transitions and animations. Okay. This will be due the Friday that we return from Thanksgiving. So today's the 16th. Next week is off entirely because state takes the entire week off for Thanksgiving, and then we return, and then this particular lab will be due on the 4th. So not this Friday, not the following Friday, because that's the day after Thanksgiving, but the Friday after that. So you have about literally about 2.5 weeks, which is more than enough time. This lab is not particularly very difficult. So work on that, submit that as you normally would for my labs. Reminder that you're responsive. Make your basic make a website responsive lab is due this coming Friday, so in about 5 days from now. Also note that your wireframes for your assignment 3 are due. So remember, you have for the project, it's one page, but you are wireframing the page at 3 different sizes. Small sizes, medium sizes, large sizes. Or in other words, essentially desktop, tablet size, and then smartphone size. Okay. So, like with assignment 2, your wireframes are really about layout. And that definitely comes into play a lot with responsive design, since a lot of really changes in responsive design is layout, like how many columns, whether certain elements exist or don't exist, like spacing and things like that. So that's really what you can get across in your layout. So for instance, here it's like, you can see like, okay, there's a 4 column layout, then it becomes a 3 column, then a 2 column. This becomes, for smartphone sizes, it becomes, uh, you know, hamburger menu kind of thing, right? So hopefully this gives you an idea of kind of, what I'm looking for. This is, once again, it's like this is kind of what you might want to present to a client is like, okay, this is what it's going to look like here, here, and here without getting too deep into it. The point of wireframes is always that you can make changes really quickly. That's why we don't put a lot of detail into them. Um, I interviewed someone. This is nothing. It's not. This isn't about web development. But I was interviewing a storyboard artist. This was for an animation course I was teaching, and he said to me something that I think is very valuable for designers, which is he was talking about storyboarding, and he said the reason why you don't want to overly, if you don't know what a storyboard is kind of like a simple comic that animations and films use to kind of lay out like the look and the direction of the camera and everything. And he deliberately said, I don't put a lot of work into my storyboards. And the reason why isn't because I don't care or I don't want to. But the whole point of a storyboard is if you put a lot of effort and time into something, you're you're less likely to want to change it because you put so much time into it, right? It's kind of the sunk fallacy kind of situation. So it's like, if you put a lot of time into drawing something for your storyboard, you want it in the final animation, even if it's not really the best scene or the best idea, but you spend so much time on it, right? And so that's kind of the point of these wireframes is that we don't really spend a lot of time on them so that if you have to throw them away and start again or whatever, it's not a big deal. Okay. So remember for the wireframes, we're not really worried about color or typography. It's really more focusing on layout and things like that. Bibbidi bobbidi boom. You can use any program you want as per usual, Figma, Adobe Photoshop, Illustrator, whatever you want to use to build your wireframes with. Just output them as a standard PDF or image format. That will be due Friday. Um, Also, a reminder, so there is no class next week, but you guys are working on this uh make a responsive um music web page. This will be due in a couple of weeks. So not this Monday, not the following Monday, but the Monday, the second Monday after we return. Basically the last, pretty much kind of the last week is class. This is to kind of help you practice with responsiveness before your final project is due. So you should be working on that if you've done your other stuff. Also, in terms of the project, we've talked about this, but a reminder that your style tile and mock-up for assignment 3 are due the Friday that we return. Okay, so remember that a style tile is a visual representation. It's got like a visual guide of like how your product is going to look. It includes things like colors and typography. Think of it as like a guide. Like if someone, the way I kind of explain it is, let's say you were working in a group, right? And someone just got added to your group like today, and you were trying to catch them up to speed about like what we're doing. In this case, it's the visuals. This is kind of like the guide that's like, hey, these are the colors, these are the fonts, this is like the general layout we're going for. So, your style tile kind of shows visual elements like background colors, textures, what buttons look like, that kind of stuff. You can kind of see examples. Obviously, the more interesting and design folk, strong they are, they're gonna get across better to other people. And then mock-ups are where you take the wireframes and your style tiles, and it's like, this is what your final project will look like. Okay. So for your mock-up, you don't have to mock up all, I know normally I had you mock up the entire page in assignment 2. You only have to do one size. So you don't have to do the mock-up for like, if you do the desktop version, you don't have to do like, say, the tablet and the smartphone version or anything like that. Okay. So just be aware of like, for the mock-up, you don't have to do all three, just one of them. So if you want to do the desktop or you want to do the smartphone, that's fine. Um, Once again, like per all of them, it's like you can use any program you want. If you want to use Photoshop, Illustrator, Figma, Photopea, whatever program you want to do, that's perfectly fine with me. Okay. All right. So these are the things you should be working on. All right.